If someone had told me they would make me marry a millionaire for her fortune, I would have laughed and called it a rumor. The first time I saw her, she didn't even look at me. She stood there tall and impossibly elegant, her posture regal and cold as marble. Her jaw set like she was made to rule over everyone in the room. Aurelia Whitmore. The name was enough to make grown men stutter and banks move billions. She was the kind of woman people whispered about, whose power clung to her like perfume. Expensive, rare, and dangerous. And she was going to be my wife. Not because she loved me, not because I loved her, but because I was told to marry her, paid to. I stood at the edge of the grand ballroom in a borrowed designer gown, fake pearls pressing against my collarbone, fingers clammy and curled into the fabric. Everything about me screamed outsider. No matter how much they tried to polish me, I didn't belong in her world of silent servants in private jets. But they didn't care. They only cared about what was in Aurelia's name and how I could get it. Just marry her, Damien had said 3 months ago when I was still drowning in debt and desperation. Charm her, make her trust you. Then once she signs over a piece of the estate, we're out. Clean, rich, free. I was too broken to say no. So I agreed. And now standing in the same room as her, I was trying not to choke on my nerves. Aurelia hadn't spoken a word to me since we were introduced. Not one. Her assistant did most of the talking, arranging the marriage like it was just another business deal. I was nothing more than a transaction to her. And she was unlike anyone I'd ever met. I watched her from across the room. Her hair was slicked back into a low chenin revealing the sharp line of her cheekbones. Her eyes, icy blue, glacial, swept past me like I didn't matter. I hated that it made my stomach twist. I hated that I wanted her to look at me, to see me. If you enjoyed this content and want to support the channel in a special way, try clicking the thanks button below. It's the one with the heart and $sign icon. With super thanks, you can make a direct contribution to the channel, which helps me keep creating awesome videos for you. Miss Keene. A voice snapped me back. Her assistant, Talia, was looking at me with a clipboard and no patience. We're ready to go over the prenup. Right, I said, throat dry, of course. We sat at the table, Aurelia at the head like a queen on her throne, me somewhere in the background, trying not to shrink. You understand the terms? Talia asked. Yes. No romantic expectations, she said, reading off the page. No legal claims to Ms. Whitmore's primary businesses. You will receive a monthly allowance for public appearances and spousal obligations. The marriage will be annulled after 2 years unless Ms. Whitmore decides otherwise. I nodded, pretending my heart wasn't splintering under the weight of it. I wasn't marrying her. I was leasing space in her life. Aurelia signed without a flicker of doubt, then passed me the pen. I watched her hand, graceful, steady, wearing a ring that could erase my entire past and purchase me a new one. I signed. The ink seeped into the paper like a quiet betrayal. The wedding came 2 weeks later. Small, private, absurdly expensive. Aurelia barely let her fingers brush my arm for the photos. Her lips ghosted my cheek and never lingered. I told myself that was fine. This was business. I didn't need her to want me. I only needed her to trust me. But that first night, alone in her mansion, our mansion, she pressed a key card into my palm. Your room is down the hall. 3rd door on the left. I blinked. We're not. No, she said simply, voice deep and smooth, velvet wrapped in ice. This is not that kind of marriage. Of course, I murmured, cheeks burning. Good night, then. She nodded and turned away, walking the corridor like she hadn't just opened a void beneath my feet. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering what I'd signed away. Days blurred into weeks. I kept up the facade, smiled for cameras, clung to her arm in public. She never complained, never revealed a thing. Polite, distant, professional, and impossibly magnetic. It made me want to scream. I started to notice how she took her coffee at precisely 6 a.m. No sugar, extra cream. How? In the library. Her fingertips traced every spine as if the books were speaking to her. How her laugh rare and low rolled like far-off thunder and left my chest aching. When it broke the quiet, I wasn't supposed to feel anything, but I did. God, I did. One night I found her in the garden, barefoot in a silk robe, the moon washing her skin in silver. She looked up like she'd been waiting. Couldn't sleep? I asked, hardly breathing. Never do, she said, voice softer than usual. You same. She tilted her head, studying me. Do you hate me yet? I froze. Why would I? You're trapped here. You didn't choose this. I laughed, brittle. Neither did you. Her eyes held mine. For the first time, I saw something fracture in her, something soft, something afraid. Maybe we're both pretending, she said. I didn't answer. I couldn't. The air between us felt electric, dangerous. She took a single step closer, just one, and I knew I was doomed. I wasn't going to last 2 years. I wouldn't make 2 months. I was already beginning to fall for her. And if she ever learned the truth that I'd married her to steal from her, she would destroy me. I wouldn't even blame her. I told myself to stop searching for her face, to stop glancing at the doorway every time I entered a room, hoping she'd be there. I told myself it was all pretense, that I was here for a job, for money, for survival. But then came the night she came home soaked in rain, her coat clinging to her frame, her hair damp and curling against her neck. And I forgot every single lie I'd carefully stacked like a house of cards. You could have called, I said, surprised at how hoarse my voice sounded. She blinked at me, water dripping from her lashes. I didn't think you'd be waiting. I wasn't. I lied. But still, she didn't answer. Just started unbuttoning her coat slowly, fingers trembling in a way I'd never seen before. I stepped forward before I could stop myself, took the coat from her hands, and hung it up. When I turned back, she was looking at me like I'd just done something intimate, like I'd touched her. Long day, I asked. You have no idea. Her eyes drifted down to the floor for a moment, then back to mine. Do you want a drink? I hesitated. This was new. We'd never shared a drink, never shared anything really beyond the occasional passing glance and choreographed smile. Sure, I said softly. She poured 2 glasses of scotch, handed me one, and sat by the fireplace like she belonged to the shadows. I sat across from her, trying not to let my eyes linger too long on the way the firelight danced across her collarbone, her cheekbones, her slightly parted lips. Do you miss your old life? She asked suddenly, eyes fixed on the flames. The one before me? I took a sip, the alcohol burning down my throat. Every day, I said honestly, but not for the reasons you think. What reasons do I think that I miss freedom or privacy or my apartment with a leaky ceiling? You don't. I miss not lying. She looked at me, then really looked. Her eyes weren't cold this time. They were curious. Are you lying now? My heart pounded every minute. She said nothing for a long time, just sipped her drink and stared at me like she could see right through the layers of falsehood I'd wrapped myself in. Then she stood, her silhouette sharp against the firelight. Come with me, she said. I followed her in silence. We moved through the corridors of the mansion until we reached a door I'd never seen open before. Inside was a music room, grand piano, cello in the corner, shelves of vinyl records, and delicate instruments displayed like art. She walked to the piano, sat on the bench, and let her fingers drift across the keys. I didn't think someone like her played. I didn't think someone like her could be so soft. She played something slow and aching, like her fingers were confessing secrets her mouth never would. When she finished, she didn't look at me, just whispered, I used to play when I couldn't sleep. You still can't, I said. No. Why? She paused, then turned to me with eyes to open. Because every night I wonder if you hate me, if you resent me for this. I shook my head. No, I whispered. That's not it. Then what is it? I took a shaky breath. I don't know how to be close to you and not want more. And I can't want more. I'm not allowed to. Who said you? This marriage, everything about it. Her eyes searched mine. And if I change the rules? My pulse stuttered. What? If I said I wanted more? I stepped back. You don't mean that. Don't I? She asked. You think I don't see the way you look at me when you think I'm not watching? I flushed. We're not real. Then why does this feel more real than anything else in my life? I couldn't answer. Because she was right. It did. It felt like a dream. I wasn't supposed to have like a life that didn't belong to me. She stood and walked toward me, slow, deliberate. I haven't touched you. Not once. But I think about it every night. And I hate that I do because this started as a lie. My breath caught. You think I'm lying now? I don't know, she said. But I know I want to find out. And then, impossibly, she reached out and brushed her fingers against my cheek. Soft, hesitant. My skin burned where she touched me. I could barely breathe. Aurelia, I whispered. Don't, she said. Don't say anything. Just stay. I stayed. Of course, I stayed. I sat beside her close enough that our legs touched, our shoulders pressed together, and the silence stretched like something holy. We didn't kiss. Not yet. But the tension between us was electric, unbearable, alive. That night, I didn't go back to my room. I slept in the music room beside her on the velvet couch, her head tilted toward me in sleep. I watched the rise and fall of her chest, listened to the soft sound of her breathing, and I realized something terrifying. I didn't want her money. I didn't want the freedom Damien promised. I didn't want the plan. I wanted her, only her. And that meant everything was about to fall apart. Because if she ever discovered the real reason I was here, I wouldn't just lose the fortune. I'd lose the only thing that had ever made me feel like I mattered. I woke up to her hand resting lightly over mine. Her fingers curled like they'd found their place there without asking. It was barely a brush, almost nothing, but it lit every nerve in me. I didn't move. I hardly breathed. I just watched our hands in the thin morning light spilling through the curtains, amazed that something so small could feel catastrophic. Aurelia shifted in sleep, her cheek grazing my shoulder, her lips parting on the softest exhale. I shut my eyes and tried to memorize everything, the weight of her beside me, the warmth of her breath, the simple fact she let herself fall asleep next to me at all. When she finally stirred, she blinked up at me as if unsure where she was, then pushed a bright hair tousled, robe slipping off one shoulder. She looked human, not the untouchable Aries, just a woman, tired, guarded, devastating. Did you sleep? She asked, voice husky with mourning. For once, I whispered. Her gaze dropped to our hands. I thought she'd pull away. She didn't. Instead, her thumb traced a slow line over my knuckles so intimate I had to swallow down the rising panic. I'm not good at this, she said. At what? Letting people in. Wanting them here. I know. You still stayed. I will. I said before I could stop myself. Her eyes snapped to mine, something shifting in her face like a door edged open just enough to glimpse what was behind it. Then her phone buzzed on the table, and the moment broke. She stood, smoothing her hair with the practiced grace of someone who hides behind control. I have a call with the board. Right? I sat up, the space between us suddenly cold. Breakfast later? She asked, almost casual. If you want. I do. She didn't wait for an answer before leaving, but her voice lingered, softer than I'd ever heard it. I sat there a long time, heart aching, thoughts racing. I needed to talk to Damien. I needed to end this, the plan, the lie, all of it. I found him that afternoon at a quiet downtown cafe we used when we didn't want to be seen together. He was already nursing an espresso when I slid into the chair across from him. You're late, he said. You're breathing. I snapped. So, skipping pleasantries, what's got you? I'm out. He stared. Out of the plan. The scam, whatever you want to call it. I'm not kidding. He leaned back, eyes narrowing. You actually fell for her. It's not like that. It's exactly like that. She's a walking bank account, Nadia. That's all she was ever meant to be. I stood. Not to me. You think she'll stay if she finds out why you married her? No, I said quietly. Which is why she can't ever know. He scoffed, shaking his head. You're going to regret this. Probably. But at least I'll regret something real. I walked out before he could reply, my pulse hammering. I didn't know how to fix what I'd done or if I could, but I knew I had to try. Back at the estate, Aurelia was in the greenhouse. She stood among the orchids, sunlight washing over her like something sacred. Fingers sunk into the soil of a potted plant. I'd never seen her like that, and guarded, grounded, almost gentle. You garden? I asked. She turned, wiping dirt-streaked fingertips on a cloth. It helps me think about the things I shouldn't want. She did that thing again, looking at me like she could see beneath my skin. You didn't tell me you were going out, she said. I stepped closer. Do I need your permission? No, just your honesty. I flinched. I needed to make sure of something. And did you? I nodded. Yes. What was it? That I'm not going anywhere. Her eyes searched mine for a long beat. Then she said, kiss me. I froze. What? Don't make me say it twice. Low voice. Unmistakable heat. My heart thundered. I closed the distance into steps and cupped her face. Her skin was warm, her breath unsteady. For a moment we just stood there, foreheads touching, breathing each other in. If I do this, I whispered, there's no turning back. Then don't turn back. I kissed her soft at first, testing, ready for her to retreat. She didn't. She leaned into me like she'd been waiting years, her lips parting, her hands gripping the front of my shirt. It wasn't sweet. It was desperate, hungry, like both of us had been starving for something neither of us had words for. When we finally broke apart, gasping, her forehead rested against mine. I should have done that a long time ago, she murmured. You scare me, I admitted. Good, she smiled, a real smile. And it undid me. I was falling fast, hard, and I didn't know how to stop. That night, we slept in the same bed. Not for show, not for duty, just because we wanted to. She curled into me like she belonged there, like my body was something she could trust. And I held her long after sleep took her. I stared at the ceiling and knew with terrifying clarity that I was going to lose her. Because the truth always finds a way out. And when it does, it doesn't care how in love you are. Every morning with her felt like waking up inside a secret I wasn't supposed to have. Aurelia was still asleep when I opened my eyes, her arm draped over my waist. Her face relaxed in a way I'd never seen when she was awake. There was no trace of the sharp businesswoman. No walls, no mask, just her. And I couldn't stop looking. Her lips slightly parted, her breath warm against my skin. The way she shifted closer to me in her sleep like her body instinctively knew mine. I was dizzy with the ache of wanting her and the dread of what I'd done to her. I closed my eyes and pressed my forehead to hers, whispering words I couldn't say aloud. I'm sorry. I didn't know it would be you. I didn't know it would feel like this. Later that morning, we were quiet. Not distant, but fragile. Like both of us knew something between us had shifted, and we weren't ready to name it yet. We moved through the estate like it was a shared dream, brushing hands in the hallway, sharing glances over breakfast, lingering in each other's presence for no reason at all. She watched me when she thought I wasn't looking. I did the same. But there was something in the air now, something hot and unspoken, charged like a storm building. That night, I stood by the window in her bedroom, watching the rain hit the glass. She came in behind me without a sound, her reflection appearing beside mine in the window pane. You didn't go to your room, she said softly. Didn't want to. She stepped closer, her voice just a breath. I don't want you to. I turned to face her, heart hammering. Her eyes were darker in the low light, filled with something I couldn't name, but felt deep in my bones. Why me? I asked, unable to help it. Out of all the people you could have married for appearances, why me? She hesitated. Because you didn't fit. Isn't that a bad thing? No, it meant you weren't afraid of me. Not like the others. I laughed low and bitter. You terrify me, Aurelia. Not in the way that matters. She stepped so close I could feel the heat radiating from her skin. Her fingers touched my wrist, slid up to my elbow. They wanted me to marry someone strategic. Someone who would obey, smile, stand beside me, and nod. And you challenge me. You make me feel something real. That wasn't the plan. Screw the plan. She kissed me again, this time without hesitation. It was slower than before, deeper. Her lips moving with purpose. Her hands pulling me into her like she'd been waiting for permission she didn't need anymore. I sink into her. Let myself want her. Let myself believe just for that moment that this could be real. We undressed each other in silence, reverent and trembling. There was no performance in it. No seduction meant for control or power. Just need, raw, desperate need. Her hands on my skin were a confession. And every breath I took against her mouth felt like a vow I was too scared to make. When she pulled me into bed, it wasn't about dominance or conquest. It was about closeness. She kissed every inch of me like she needed to memorize it. Like I was something precious instead of borrowed. We didn't speak, didn't need to. Our bodies told the truth. We'd been too afraid to admit. After I lay with my head on her chest, her fingers tracing patterns on my back, I didn't want to move. I didn't want the night to end. What happens now? I asked quietly. She was silent for a while. Then I don't know, but I want to find out with you. I wanted to cry or scream or tell her everything, but instead, I kissed her shoulder and held her tighter. I was so far and I didn't even recognize myself anymore. I was someone else, someone who wanted to stay, someone who needed her more than she needed the truth. But lies have a way of catching up. The next morning, Talia called Aurelia into her office. I could feel the shift the second she came back. Her posture was stiff, her eyes guarded again. What is it? I asked. She didn't answer right away, just sat on the edge of the bed and stared at her hands. Someone's been asking questions about you, she said finally. What kind of questions? Financial, legal, personal. My blood ran cold. That's not unusual, right? I mean, we're married. People talk. These weren't reporters. They were private, quiet. I forced myself to breathe. Do you think I'm hiding something? She looked at me, and for a second I thought she'd say no, that she trusted me. But then she said, I don't know, and that scares me. My stomach dropped. She stood, pacing the room like she needed movement to think. When I first met you, I didn't care who you were. I just needed a name beside mine. But now she stopped. Face me. Now I care too much. And I don't know if that's a mistake. It's not, I said. Aurelia, I don't, she whispered. Not unless it's the truth. The silence between us felt like a thread pulled too tight. One snap away from breaking. I wanted to tell her everything. To fall on my knees and beg for forgiveness before she found out the worst parts of me. From someone else. But I couldn't. Not yet. Not when the person I'd been before her was still clinging to the edges of my skin. I need to know, she said, voice trembling, that you're here because you want me, not because someone sent you. My heart stopped. My entire world tilted. She was close. Too close to the truth. And I didn't know how much longer I could keep it buried. I reached for her hand, but she stepped back. Figured out, she said. Because if you keep lying to me, even by silence, I'll know. I didn't sleep that night. Not even a second. I lay in the cold emptiness of my bed, the one she used to call mine, staring at the ceiling like it could answer the questions clawing at my insides. The silence was unbearable. I could still feel her fingertips on my skin, still taste the kiss we shared in the greenhouse, still hear her voice whispering that she wanted more. And now she was slipping away. Not because I didn't love her, But because I hadn't told her the one thing that could make her hate me forever, I married her to take from her. I stepped into her world with a lie strapped to my chest like a bomb, primed to detonate the second she drew too close. And she was close now, so close I forgot how to breathe without her. I tried to imagine her face when the truth surfaced. The look in her eyes when she understood what I'd done. Would she scream, cry, freeze over and shut down, pretend none of it existed? Or, worst of all, would she look at me like I was no one, like I'd never mattered? I slipped out of bed before dawn. I needed air, space, a way to stop drowning under the truth I'd buried. I wandered the grounds in silence, fog coiling around the hedges like ghosts. Everything felt far away, unreal, until I heard her in the stables, laughing, the sound I'd been starving for cracking her mask, making my chest ache. I edged closer, unseen. There she was, offering sugar cubes to a horse, speaking softly to Talia. Her back was turned, shoulders loose, voice warm and low. "She's different," Aurelia was saying. "I can't explain it. She lets me breathe." Talia stonewalled. Talia actually smiled. "You're in love with her." "I know," Aurelia whispered. "And that's what terrifies me." My knees nearly buckled. I gripped the stone wall to stay upright. She loved me. She really loved me. And I hadn't earned a single breath of it. I turned away before she saw me, because every second I stayed silent was another fracture in the glass between us. The rest of the morning I hid in my studio, an old guest room I'd claimed so I could paint and sketch in peace. I stared at a blank canvas until my fingers twitched and my heart galloped and guilt piled higher. I had to tell her. That night, I waited in the dining room. Table set, candles shivering, wine glasses untouched. I wore the dress she liked, the one she said warmed my eyes, and I waited. When she came in, her face was unreadable, but she didn't leave. She sat across from me, gaze heavy, saying nothing. "Why this?" she asked, tipping her chin at the table. "Because I need to talk, and I need you to really hear me." Suspicion tightened her eyes. "Okay." I drew a breath. My palms were slick. My chest ached. Before I came here, I wasn't in a good place. Desperate. Broke. Being used by people who didn't care whether I lived or died. Her jaw clenched. She said nothing. "One of them told me about you, your money, your power, your isolation." I held her eyes. I owed her that much. "They made me an offer. Get close to you, marry you, access your fortune." Her breath caught just enough to show the break starting. "So it's true," she whispered. "All of it." "It was," I said quickly. "At first. But then I met you. And you weren't cold. You weren't unreachable. You were fire, and fear, and strength, and silence. Nothing like what they told me. You were more." Her eyes glossed anger, hurt. "So you lied. Every smile, every kiss, every night in my bed." "No," I said, voice shaking. "Those were real. I swear, Aurelia, everything after day one was real." I tried not to feel it. I tried to stay detached. I couldn't. "I fell in love with you." She shot to her feet. "You don't get to say that. Not now. Please. You don't get to stand in my home, in my life, in my heart, and pretend you're the wounded one. I'm not," I said. "I broke it. I know I broke everything. But I had to tell you before someone else did, before it was too late. It already is." She breathed. The pain in her voice gutted me. She turned and walked out without another word, leaving me alone with the ruin I'd made. I stayed after the candles drowned in wax. After the night folded in on itself. I didn't cry. I couldn't. I just sat there hollow, knowing I'd finally done the right thing, and that it cost me everything. The days that followed were colder than winter, not in temperature. The mansion still basked in light. Sun poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows. The cellars still held expensive wine. Staff hummed through the halls. But the heat that mattered, the one that lived in her eyes, in her voice, in the quiet pockets of our stolen glances, was gone. She didn't speak to me. Not once. She didn't need words. Her silence screamed inside my chest. Her absence was precise, deliberate. She made sure I felt it. At meals, she never came. At events, she moved ahead, not beside. At night, her bedroom door stayed closed to me in every way that counted. The bed we'd shared went cold, and so did I. I kept hoping to catch her gaze, to find anything anger, betrayal, sorrow-proof I still existed to her. There was nothing, just ice. I stayed. I don't know why. Maybe because I couldn't imagine leaving. Maybe because I thought I deserved the hurt. Maybe because some stubborn piece of me believed she might forgive me. I told myself I wouldn't try to win her back, that it wasn't fair to expect her love again after what I'd done. But the truth was simple and merciless. In every way that mattered, I was still hers, and I didn't know how to stop being hers. One evening, a week after the fallout, I stood in the garden we used to walk through together. The one with the stone bench beneath the climbing ivy. The one where she once touched my wrist and told me I made her feel something real. I sat there for hours, the cold biting at my skin, and I thought about everything I should have said differently, everything I should have done sooner. I didn't hear her approach until I caught the faintest sound of footsteps on the gravel path. My breath caught, and when I looked up, there she was, standing just a few feet away, wrapped in a black coat, her hair swept up, face unreadable in the fading light. My heart slammed against my ribs. I stood up slowly, unsure if I was allowed to speak. She looked at me like she was trying to decide whether I was worth breaking her silence. "This is where you brought me the night we kissed," she said. Her voice was soft, detached. "I remember, do you?" "I remember everything." She stared at me. "Why did you tell me the truth?" "Because I couldn't keep lying to you. Not after what we shared. You had so many chances to tell me sooner. Why wait until it was too late?" "Because I was a coward," I whispered. "And I was scared of losing you, of hurting you, of ruining the one thing in my life that ever felt real. And you think telling the truth fixed that?" "No. But it was the only thing I had left to give." She crossed her arms over her chest. "Talia thinks I should have you investigated, charged with fraud. She's probably right. Do you want me to do it?" "No," I said. "But if it makes you feel safer, I won't fight it. I'd rather be punished for the truth than forgiven for a lie." She was silent, watching me. I couldn't breathe. Then finally, she said, "You broke something in me, Nadia. Something I didn't think could be broken anymore." My eyes burned. "I know. And you gave me something I didn't think I'd ever have." Her voice cracked. "You made me believe I could be loved for who I am. Not what I own. Not what I protect. Just me." I stepped closer carefully. "I do love you. I know you probably don't want to hear that. I know it doesn't matter anymore. But I needed you to know." Her eyes shimmered. "Then say it again. I love you. Say it like you mean it." I didn't hesitate. "I love you, Aurelia. I love the way you speak when you're tired and forget to be cold. I love the way you care for things in secret, like those orchids you water at night when no one's watching. I love the way you fight to protect the people you care about, even when it costs you everything. I love the way you looked at me like I was more than a lie. I love every part of you, and I hate myself for hurting you." A tear slipped down her cheek. She didn't wipe it away. She let it fall. "Do you still have the ring?" I blinked. "What? The wedding ring?" she said. "Do you still have it?" I reached into my coat pocket, hands trembling. I hadn't taken it off. Not once. Not even after she walked away. I showed it to her without a word. She nodded. "Good." Then she turned and walked back into the house, leaving me there with the wind and the stars and the ache of hope blooming in my chest. That night, she came to my room. No knocking, no warning, just silence and then her. I sat up in bed, hard in my throat, and she stood at the foot of it, staring at me like she didn't know what to do with everything she still felt. "I'm not ready to forgive you," she said. "I'm not asking for that. But I miss you. My breath hitched. I miss you, too. I don't sleep without you. I swallowed. I don't either. Slowly, she walked to the side of the bed, sat down beside me. Her fingers brushed mine. I don't know what this is anymore. I don't know if I can trust you again. Then let me earn it. I don't want a perfect apology, she said, voice trembling. I want proof that I wasn't wrong about you. Then let me stay. Let me prove I'm not who I was. She looked at me, and for the first time in days, I saw something soft in her again. Not forgiveness, not yet, but something like it. She laid down beside me. She didn't touch me, just lay there, eyes open, breathing slowly, like she needed to be near me, even if her heart wasn't ready. And I didn't try to hold her. I didn't try to kiss her. I just stayed quiet, steady there, because love wasn't about having her. It was about deserving her, and I was ready to fight for that no matter how long it took. SSS. The days that followed were made of fragile silences and small, careful steps. She didn't ask me to leave. She didn't tell me I was forgiven either. But she let me stay. That was the beginning. Every morning I woke before her, lying still in the bed we once shared with ease, now divided by caution and wounds still raw. I watched the ceiling while the sun crept across the room, thinking of all the ways I'd failed her. And every time she stirred beside me, I'd close my eyes and pretend to sleep just so I wouldn't ruin the peace of her waking. She still didn't touch me, but she didn't pull away when our arms brushed in the hallway. She let me walk beside her again, not ahead or behind. She spoke to me in short, quiet sentences, nothing like before, but it was more than silence. One morning, I found her in the kitchen. She was barefoot, her hair down, wearing one of the soft sweaters she used to only wear when we were alone. She glanced at me briefly, then turned back to the stove. I made coffee, she said, my chest had at the sound of her voice. I stepped closer cautiously. Thanks. It's not forgiveness, she added quickly. I know it's habit. I'm okay with that. She poured a cup and slid it across the counter toward me. Our fingers touched, and this time she didn't flinch. Later that day, I returned to the greenhouse. The orchids were still thriving, just as she'd left them. I watered them gently, remembering how she'd shown me once. Never drown them, she'd said. They need patience, not force. That was how I touched her now, like something that needed time. That night, she came into the room again. Her hair was damp from a shower. The scent of her skin, something I'd memorized long ago, but hadn't allowed myself to breathe in since everything fell apart. She didn't look at me as she slid into the bed, but she didn't face away either. We lay there side by side, the inches between us crackling with tension, neither of us moving. I wanted to speak, to reach for her, to tell her how desperately I missed the sound of her laugh, the weight of her gaze when she looked at me like I was more than just a body-filling space. But I stayed still, and then in the quiet, her hand found mine beneath the sheets. Just her fingers brushing mine, tentative and slow. I turned toward her, barely breathing. Her eyes were open, staring at the ceiling. I still don't know how to feel. She whispered, you don't have to know. I'm not asking you to feel anything you're not ready for. You broke me, I know, but you made me feel alive before you did. I still want to, I said. Every day. She turned to face me. Her eyes were tired, but not empty. There was pain there, yes, but there was something else, too. A flicker, a question, a pull. Do you regret telling me? She asked. No, I said, because at least now you know who I am. All of me. And if you ever decide to love me again, you'll know it's real. She didn't answer, but she didn't let go of my hand either. The next morning, she asked me to ride with her. We hadn't gone out together in weeks, not since everything shattered. But she stood at the front of the estate with 2 horses saddled and ready, her coat cinched at the waist, her gloves already on. Come, she said simply. I followed. The ride was quiet at first, the steady rhythm of hooves the only sound between us. The field stretched wide and open, the wind teasing the edges of her hair loose from the tie at her nape. She looked like something out of a dream I wasn't allowed to have anymore. "Do you remember the first time we did this?" she asked suddenly. "You yelled at me," I said, smiling faintly, "because you didn't know how to steer." "I still don't. You're better now. Only because I kept trying to impress you. You don't have to impress me." Her voice was softer now. "You already did." I looked at her, heart clenching. "Did?" She glanced over, eyes meeting mine. "Do." The word hung between us like a promise waiting to be made. We stopped beneath a tree, the same one we'd once rested under after a ride during the early days of our marriage. She dismounted first, then turned to help me down. Her hands lingered on my waist longer than they needed to. I didn't move. Neither did she. "There's something I want to give you," she said. She reached into the pocket of her coat and pulled out a folded sheet of paper. My stomach twisted. I took it slowly, eyes locked on hers. I opened it. My name, my signature, the prenup voided. "What is this?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "You signed this to protect me, but now I want to protect you, too. Not your past, not what you were, but who you are now. You don't have to. I know what I'm doing." She stepped closer. "You married me for the wrong reasons, but somewhere along the way, it stopped being a lie. And if I'm being honest, I think I started lying too." "About what?" "About how badly I wanted you to stay. How much I wished this wasn't pretend. How much it scared me that it started to feel real." My eyes blurred. It was real. Every moment with you was real. She reached up and touched my cheek, thumb brushing away a tear. "Then let's stop pretending." I leaned in, but this time she met me halfway. The kiss was slow and deep, the kind that healed, the kind that said, "I'm not whole yet, but I want to be with you." When we pulled apart, she pressed her forehead to mine. "I'm not promising everything will be perfect," she said, "but I want to try if you'll stay." "I'm not going anywhere," I whispered. I never really left, and for the first time in weeks, I saw her smile. Real soft, a beginning, not the end. The air between us had changed. It wasn't just that she kissed me again. It was how she looked at me afterward, like I wasn't a wound anymore, but something healing, something hers. There was still pain, but it wasn't cutting like before. It lived beneath the surface. Quieter now, no longer screaming, but whispering instead. I could live with the whisper. I could live with her. She didn't tell me she forgave me. Not in words. Aurelia didn't speak feelings easily, but she showed them in the way she lingered by my side, in the way her fingers brushed mine when no one was looking, in how she stopped avoiding my gaze and instead met it full and steady as if daring me to look away. I never did. I didn't want to miss a second. One night, I found her sitting at the edge of the indoor pool, her feet skimming the surface. The room lit only by the underwater lights glowing soft and blue. She wore a silk robe, loose and tied lazily, her hair down and damp at the ends, like she'd just stepped out of the shower. I stopped at the doorway, stunned by the quiet beauty of her. "Are you coming in?" she asked without turning. "Is this a trap?" "Possibly," she said, and for the first time in a long time, she smiled, crooked, secretive. Stunning. I walked toward her, heart pounding. "You never swim." "I do when I can't sleep." "You haven't been sleeping either." She looked at me then. "Not since the night I sent you away." "That makes two of us." "Did you think about me?" she asked. "Every second, even when you hated yourself." "Especially then." She turned back to the water. "I didn't know if I'd ever want to touch you again." I swallowed. And now she reached for my hand, pulled me gently into the water. We moved in silence, weightless bodies drifting in slow circles as the water wrapped around us. She traced her fingers over my shoulder, down my arm, across my stomach. I shivered. "I keep remembering the first time I let myself want you," she whispered. The night you sat beside me in the music room, you didn't say anything. You just stayed. And for the first time in years, I felt safe. My chest cracked open at her words. I wanted to touch you that night, I said, but I was scared I'd ruin it. You were already ruining me, she said softly, in all the best ways. I reached up and cubed her face. She leaned into the touch, closed her eyes, let herself melt against me. I kissed her slow and reverent, and this time there was no hunger, no desperation, only truth. We made love in the water, floating together like we had all the time in the world. It was slow, deep, tender, her skin on mine, her lips in my throat. Her body wrapped around me like I was the only place she felt safe. She whispered my name like a prayer, and I answered her with everything I had, everything I was, everything I would never hide from her again. Afterward, wrapped in towels and silence, she curled into my lap on the chaise lounge by the water. I held her like something sacred, like a second chance I wasn't going to waste. What happens now? I asked. Now, she tilted her head. Now we rebuild. But this time, no lies, no secrets. I added, no deals. She looked up at me, eyes shining. Just us. We spent the next few weeks slowly reclaiming the life we'd built out of fiction. This time, brick by brick with nothing hidden between us. We went back to our routines, breakfasts on the terrace, shared meetings, charity galas where she held my hand without hesitation. But everything felt different now, warmer, closer, real. One evening, as we walked through the art wing of her estate, a part I'd avoided since the night, everything fell apart. She stopped in front of a blank canvas. You haven't painted since the fallout, she said. I didn't think I deserved to. Then maybe it's time you forgive yourself. I don't know how. She took my hand, placed it gently on the edge of the canvas. Start here. I picked up the brush the next morning, painted until my hands had, and my chest felt lighter. She watched from the doorway sometimes, never interrupting, just watching. And I painted her again and again. Her eyes, her mouth, her hands, her silence, her fury, her softness, her forgiveness. Even when she hadn't said the word, she was everywhere. One night after dinner, she poured us wine and said, "There's something I need to tell you." My stomach flipped. What is it? I got an offer. From who? A tech firm wants to merge with Whitmore International. It would mean stepping away, selling control. I stared at her. You're considering it. I was, she said, before you. And now, I think maybe I want to build something else. Something mine, something ours. My throat closed. Are you saying you want to leave it all behind? Not all, she said. Just enough that I'm not trapped by it anymore. I don't want to live in rooms full of people who only want my money. I want something real like this. I asked. She reached for my hand. Exactly like this. The next day, she announced her partial resignation. The media went into chaos, tabloids speculating, investors panicking. But she didn't flinch. She stood beside me at the press conference, her hand resting lightly at the small of my back. Her voice calm, powerful. I'm not stepping away because I'm weak, she said. I'm stepping away because I finally found something worth stepping toward. And then she looked at me. Not the cameras, not the reporters. Me, the woman she chose, the woman who had once been her lie. That night when we were alone again, she curled into my side in bed and whispered, "You still haven't asked me to stay." I turned to her confused. What do you mean? You're here. But I want to hear it, she said. I want you to choose me. Not because you have to. Not because the world expects it. Because you want to. I sat up, took her hand. Aurelia Whitmore. I whispered, I don't want your money. I don't want your name. I want you. Just you. Stay with me. She smiled slow and soft like the sunrise. Then I will. And when we kissed again, it wasn't the beginning of something new. It was the continuation of everything we were finally brave enough to fight for. It had been 3 months since Aurelia stepped away from the Empire. Her family had spent generations building. 3 months since she chose me over legacy, control, and comfort. And even now, I sometimes woke up in the middle of the night convinced I had dreamed all of it. That she hadn't really forgiven me, that I hadn't really earned her. But then I'd feel her body shift beside mine, her fingers curling unconsciously into my waist, her breathing steady and warm against my skin, and I'd remember it was real. All of it. Every second. We built something new in those months. Something that wasn't held together by lies or obligation. We moved into a smaller house on the edge of the Whitmore Vineyards. Still extravagant by normal standards, but quieter, more intimate. Hers in a different way. Ours. She filled it with light, with music again, with softness. I filled it with paintings. She hung every single one. "You keep painting me," she said one morning, leaning against the studio doorway in her robe, holding a cup of tea, the sunlight catching the curve of her cheek. "Because I can't stop seeing you," I replied, brushing streaks of oil paint across a fresh canvas. "Even when you're not in the room." "That's dangerous," she teased, walking closer. "You might forget what I really look like." "Impossible." She kissed me, her hand slipping around the back of my neck, her mouth slow and familiar, and still so dizzying. I'd never get used to kissing her. I didn't want to. But peace doesn't stay untouched for long. Not when you've built a life on top of something broken. That afternoon, while Aurelia was out meeting with a friend from the board, she still advised occasionally. I got a call. I almost didn't answer. The number was unfamiliar. "I wish I hadn't." Nadia Akar said, the voice on the other end. Smooth and unbothered, still living like a queen. "I see." My blood ran cold. "Damien thought you got rid of me." "I did know," he said calmly. "You just ignored me long enough to believe I'd disappear, but I don't vanish, Nadia, not when there's still something to collect. I don't owe you anything, you owe me everything." He snapped. "I gave you that life, I gave you the plan. You gave me a lie, and I'm done lying. Then you'll enjoy what happens next." "What are you talking about?" "I have proof," he said. "Messages, conversations, recordings, everything you said before you grew a conscience." My heart stopped. "You wouldn't." "I would," he said. "And I will unless you pay." "I don't have access to her money." "You still have her." "Not like that." "Then find a way or I'll destroy both of you." He hung up. I sat on the floor for what felt like hours. The phone still clutched in my hand, the room spinning. He had recordings of me before I knew Aurelia, before I loved her, before I became someone else. I told myself she'd understand, that she already forgave me for the worst part of it. But this wasn't a confession from me. This was a betrayal that would come in someone else's voice. Manipulated, weaponized. I had to tell her before he could. That evening, I waited for her in the study. She came in just after sunset, hair windswept, cheeks flushed from the cold. "Everything okay?" she asked. I didn't answer right away. I just stared at her, her softness, her strength. The woman who once walked through fire to keep people like me from getting too close. And now here she was, trusting me, loving me. "What happened?" she asked again, stepping forward. Damien called. Her eyes darkened instantly. "What did he want? Money or threats?" "He says he has recordings from before. When I first agreed to the plan." Her shoulders tightened, her hands curled at her sides. "What kind of recordings?" "Voice messages. Conversations? Proof that I wasn't here for the right reasons, that I was planning to hurt you." "And you were," she said softly. "I know you told me already, but this isn't coming from me. He wants to make it public or use it to destroy you, and I don't know what to do." She stared at me for a long time. Then, without a word, she walked to the liquor cabinet, poured herself a drink, and took a long, steady sip. "He won't get what he wants. You don't know that." "Yes, I do, because I know you now. But if the world hears those recordings, then let them," she said. "Let them hear who you were. It doesn't change who you are now." It doesn't change who you are to me. But your company isn't who I am. Your name isn't who I love. I stared at her, tears burning behind my eyes. I don't deserve you. Maybe not, she said, but you chose to tell me first. That matters. What do? We fight back. With what? She smiled then. Fierce, beautiful, unshakable, with truth, with power, with lawyers far more terrifying than Damien could ever dream of. You're not afraid. Terrified, she whispered, but I'd rather face it with you than hide from it alone. That night, she held me tighter than she ever had before, as if she already knew the storm was coming, and she wasn't letting go. The storm didn't wait. It hit 3 days later with a fury we couldn't stop, only brace against. The recordings leaked to the press just as Damien promised. Headlines exploded. Reese Aurelia Whitmore duped by con artist wife. Secret marriage scandal. The shocking truth behind the Whitmore union. From rags to riches to lies. Who is Nadia Keene? Reporters circled the estate like vultures. My face was plastered everywhere on gossip blogs, news channels, even financial columns analyzing the collapse of trust in one of the most powerful names in the industry. But the worst part wasn't the cameras or the questions or the disgust in people's eyes when they thought they knew the whole story. The worst part was watching Aurelia step in front of the chaos, put her reputation on the line, and defend me, not just in private, but in front of the entire world. She called a press conference. The cameras rolled and I stood just out of frame, watching her, my heart in pieces, unsure if I deserved the grace she was about to give me. She wore black, sleek, strong, her hair pulled back, lips painted in the same deep crimson that always made her look like royalty. She stepped up to the podium and said, "You all came here for a story, so I'll give you one." The room silenced. Yes, Nadia Keene came into my life under false pretenses. Yes, she agreed to marry me in exchange for money for access. She did not come to me with honesty. But what happened afterward? That was never part of anyone's plan. She stayed. She cared. She told me the truth before anyone else did. And she chose love even when it would have been easier to keep lying. The reporters murmured. Flashes went off. She continued. What I see in Nadia Keene is not a lie. It's a woman who made a terrible decision and then chose to become better. Not for gain, not for forgiveness, but because love makes us want to be more than who we were. And I believe in her, not because I'm naive, but because I know what it feels like to be afraid of being loved. I know what it feels like to hide behind power. And I know without a doubt that what we have is real. I covered my mouth, tears burning hot and blinding. She didn't stop there. If you think I'm a victim, I'm not. I've never been. I'm not asking for your pity. I'm not asking for your approval. I'm asking you to remember that people are allowed to change. That love doesn't always arrive perfectly wrapped. And that sometimes the hardest thing to do is forgive someone who's already punishing themselves. She stepped down and didn't wait for applause. She moved past the flashes and the shouted questions and came straight to me. And in front of everyone, took my hand. I couldn't speak. I couldn't breathe. Still want me, she whispered. Always. I managed. Then she kissed me soft, certain, deliberate. Not for show. Not for headlines. For us. The fallout was vicious. The board pushed her out of her remaining advisory posts. Her name dipped on the market. Brands backed away. She didn't flinch. She transmuted it into freedom. Let them go, she said as we sipped wine on the balcony of our new place above the cliffs of Positano. I didn't want that life anymore. And what do you want? I asked, curled into her side, the Mediterranean wind curling around us. She pressed a kiss to my temple. A quiet empire. One where I wake beside someone who knows all my secrets and stays. One where I plant vines, raise dogs, and write books no one reads but you. You want to write? I already do. She slid a leather-bound notebook from beneath the chair. She'd been writing about us from the beginning, even the worst parts. Why didn't you tell me? Because I wanted to remember it honestly. Every scar, every risk, every miracle. And the ending? Her eyes softened. That depends. On what? On whether you'll marry me again. My breath caught. What? This time, she said. No contracts, no lies, just love. My heart pounded. Yes, God, yes. We were married in a garden above the sea, barefoot and laughing, surrounded by the few who never left when the truth surfaced. No cameras, no tabloids, just flowers, wind, and vows whispered so quietly only we could hear. I choose you, she said, voice trembling, even when I shouldn't, even when I'm afraid, even when it's hard. I choose you, I echoed, even when I'm haunted by who I was, even when I feel unworthy. You are worthy, she said, kissing my knuckles. You are. That night, wrapped in sheets and moonlight, she looked at me the way she always did when her guard was gone, with that raw, consuming tenderness that made my chest ache. Do you still have trouble sleeping without me? She murmured. I laughed, pulling her close. I don't sleep without you at all. We drifted off, folded around each other, not in fear or guilt, but in peace. And for the first time, I didn't dream of running, or hiding, or being found out. I dreamed of staying. Always. Thank you so much for your support, whether you like, comment, share, or send a super thanks. You make all the difference here on the channel. See you in the next one.